Right, so let's look at the metabolic response to starvation and the biology of malnutrition. The mind map actually summarizes everything, so it will help us brainstorm and remember everything that we know about this. So, with the cycle of malnutrition, how and where to break the cycle is the main issue, and the focus of intervention is now on the cycle or the life course. So you see, if there's inadequate food intake, healthcare, um, let's use the older population with the elderly, they'll be malnourished and there'll be reduced capacity to, yeah. So even with the adults or the pregnant women, women not malnourished, inadequate fetal nutrition, low birth weight, and even with low weight gain in pregnancy, um, there's a higher maternal mortality rate and also higher rate of the baby having low weight and high mortality, neonatal mortality, impaired mental development, and even increased risk of adult chronic disease when the baby grows up. And with such a baby, it could lead to stunted growth, a stunted child, due to inadequate catch-up growth and untimely or inadequate weaning, frequent infections, inadequate food and healthcare. And this, of course, will lead to reduced mental capacity. And with adolescents stunted due to inadequate food or healthcare, lead to reduced mental capacity, and this in turn leads to inadequate leads to women or pregnant women being malnourished or having low weight gain, leading back to the elderly malnourished or the low birth weight and all the neonatal issues. So this cycle has to be broken, and that's where the issue is. The types of malnutrition includes overnutrition, secondary malnutrition, micronutrient malnutrition, and protein calorie malnutrition. So what happens to people when they have inadequate amounts of food and nutrients? It could be metabolic changes, physiologic changes, psychological changes. And with the metabolic response to starvation, hunger subsides after 2 to 3 days, and defecation ceases after 3 to 4 days. Urine output drops after 1 week in the majority of people to 100 to 700 mils per day, and blood glucose drops to 35 to 65 milligrams per deciliter without clinical signs of hypoglycemia. And nausea occurs in about one third from ketone production from body fat breakdown. And with metabolic response, the adaptive response to starvation involves specific metabolic alterations that enhance the chance of survival by increasing the use of body fat as a fuel, sparing the use of glucose, minimizing body nitrogen losses, and also decreasing energy expenditure. And when it comes to metabolic response, a marked shift in the fuel use occurs during the first day of starvation. By 24 hours of fasting, the use of glucose as the fuel has decreased, and only 15% of liver glycogen stores remain. As decrease in rates of hepatic glucose production and whole body glucose oxidation too occurs. Endogenous fat stores become the body's main fuel, and the rates of adipose tissue lipolysis, hepatic ketone production, and also fat oxidation are increased. And after 3 days of fasting, the rate of glucose production is reduced by half, and the rate of lipolysis is more than double the value found at 12 hours of fasting. With the body's composition, all body tissue masses are affected by undernutrition, and the fat mass and muscle mass are the most severely affected. And lean adults, two tissues account for almost 2/3 of body weight. The loss of weight that occurs in malnourished patients is principally the result of a loss of in muscle and fat mass The adipose tissue can be almost completely depleted, and up to half of the muscle mass can be consumed before death from starvation occurs. With the body water, many patients who are malnourished have intravascular volume depletion because of inadequate water and sodium intake. However, the percentage of body weight that is composed of water may be increased. Occurs decreased plasma proteins, leaky capillaries, leaky cells, and increased interstitial iron content may cause intravascular volume depletion and expansion of the interstitial space. So, malnourished patients may have diminished intravascular fluid. Always remember this. And still on the metabolic response to starvation, the serum electrolytes um, do not change the renal. That is when renal conservation occurs promptly, or you rarely see low potassium in prolonged fast. But of course, electrolyte imbalance is a serious issue you have to deal with. And with a negative nitrogen balance, it happens from the first 5 to 7 days. It has to do with 12 grams to 15 grams of nitrogen per day is excreted in the urine. That's based on, let's say, 1,800 kilocalories daily needs. And with the skeletal muscle, it's metabolized to produce glucose as a gluconeogenesis using about 75 grams per day of protein. This is equal to 3/4 IB of wet tissue per day, and about 260 milligrams per day of body fat is also used. With a negative nitrogen balance, like I said, gradually slows so that at about a month, 2 to 4 grams of nitrogen is lost per day. Skeletal muscle catabolism decreased significantly. Only for cells that have to have glucose, like the central nervous system, red blood cells, and white blood cells. So there is a gradual shift in the metabolic fuels, where the first glucose is produced from protein breakdown to provide energy, and then fat breakdown and metabolism provides ketones for all tissues except the central nervous system, um, RBCs and WBCs. So the brain will eventually use the ketones, but red blood cells have no mitochondria, so they must use the glucose, of course. And with the serum fatty acid levels, it increases, and the serum albumin is normal until the late stage of starvation. Right, so when it comes to production of ketones, the fatty acids are converted to acetyl CoA, and it can go through two pathways. So with the pathway of ketone body production from acetyl CoA, it could be used for energy or secreted in the urine or accumulating blood. That is when carbohydrate is unavailable, or this happening in the liver. But then the acetyl CoA could be converted to join the citric acid cycle. That is when carbohydrate is available. Oxaloacetate joins acetyl CoA, and it enters the citric acid cycle, leading to production of ATP, water, and oxygen. Right, so with still on the metabolism and the whole pathway, glycolysis, formation of acetyl CoA, citric acid in mitochondria, electron transport chain in the inner membrane of the mitochondria, or are all interrelated to the glucose, fatty acids, and amino acids. And malnutrition can affect all these pathways. So hormonal changes, decrease plasma insulin could be affected, and plasma cortisol and growth hormone stays the same as glucagon increases. Oh, this happens because these changes are responsible for the mobilization and oxidation of the fat stores, and changes in the sympathetic nervous system metabolism of thyroid hormone, lowers the basal metabolic rate. And weight loss, the first week about 0.7 to 1.3 kilograms per day, much of which is salt and water loss. And after the first week, 0.3 to 0.5 kilograms per day, the basal metabolic rate and the total energy expenditure decrease in prolonged starvation, and this cause decreased activity, increased sleep, decrease in body temperature. So a fasting man and the adapting after weeks. So let's say 24 hours. The basal metabolic rate being 1,800 kilo calories. So the origin of the fuel cause glycogen stores in the liver, adipose tissues, triglycerides converted back to glycerol and back to into the gluconeogenesis pathway to glycogen back to glucose, or the triglycerides to ketones to acetyl CoA, and then but then the muscles have been converted to amino acids, and it also joins the gluconeogenesis pathway, and it's being utilized back to glycogen or to but then for 5 to 6 weeks, the one you realize that virtually the same thing is almost happening, but then the muscles more than 20 grams will be broken down as compared to the 75 grams that happens initially, and then the adipose tissue of 160 grams, but 150 grams for that's about 5 to 6 weeks after beginning the fasting. So the classic study by some researchers showed that physical activity and psychological changes during the semi-starvation was very evident. So traditionally, used to describe what happens during dieting. And there is traditional stereotypes of the poor in relationship to the findings of this particular study. So 12 weeks of baseline diets, you realize that the normal diet of about 51% carbohydrate, 30% of protein, and 32% of fats, the patients or those undergoing that study started responding gradually in 24 weeks after semi-starvation diets. They were still showing some psychological symptoms, but 12 weeks of rehabilitation followed after the semi-starvation diet with a normal diet. So that took more than about 33 weeks. The 24-week semi-starvation diet consists of food designed to represent the types of food available in some farming areas in Europe. So in that particular study, they use whole wheat grains, potato cereals, amounts of turnips and cabbage, cooking amounts of meat and dairy products. So about 1,600 kilocalories per day, 71% of carbohydrates, 12% of protein, and 17% of fat, and serve 2 meals per day at 8:30 a.m. 5 p.m. And with these, the body weight decreased about 25% from a mean of 69.4 kilograms, a BMI 21.4 to BMI of 16.3. That's like 52.6 kilograms. So weight loss decreased progressively and nearly reached a plateau at the end of the semi-starvation period, and subjects adjusted their energy expenditure to reach a balance after 24 weeks at 45% of the liberal diet. And with the adaptation, it's accompanied by loss of active tissue, so relatively high loss of lean body mass, and the body fat loss made up of about 1/3 of the weight changes. And reduced activity causes were the main part of the energy savings. It was decreased basal metabolic rates due to less lean body mass and less thermic effects of food due to lower intake, and there was reduced body weight, resulting in less caloric cost of physical activity. And with the raw adaptations, it was, like I said, reduction in tissue metabolism leading to decreased um, basal metabolic rate and reduction in physical activity. Also, with the physical signs, after 3 months, the participants complained of fatigue, muscle soreness, irritability, hunger pains too, and then they exhibited a lack of ambition, self-discipline, poor concentration, and were often moody and depressed, became less able to laugh heartily, sneeze, and tolerate heat, and heart rate and muscle tone also decreased. But when permitted to eat normally again, the desire for more food and a feeling of fatigue continued, even after 12 weeks of rehabilitation. And full recovery required about 33 weeks. But when it comes to death from starvation, at the terminal phase of starvation, the body fat mass, skeletal muscle mass, and the size of most organs are markedly decreased. And during this final phase, the fat stores are nearly depleted, and energy derived from body fat decreases. The muscle protein catabolism is also accelerated, and many patients will ultimately succumb to infection. And suggested lethal levels of body weight loss, about 40% of body weight, of protein depletion, about 30 to 50% of body protein, and um of fat depletions to about 70 to 95% of body fat stores, and of the body size, body mass index of 13 kilograms per meter square for men, and about 11 kilograms per meter square for women. These are like the lethal levels of body weight loss. So during the duration of survival depends on the amount of available endogenous fuels and amount of lean tissue, and data from an Irish Republican Army hunger strikers demonstrates that death occurs in lean men after approximately 2 months of starvation. Alright, so that's something brief about metabolic response to starvation.